it's very easy in the grand scheme of things to maintain power as you age. That is one of the hardest qualities to quote unquote keep, but it's easy to keep that power. Keeping the speed is the hard part, right? Like, because power is a dynamic of speed and force production at what speed you're producing it. So your force production can go up even as you age. But your speed, it's very difficult to keep. And a lot of that is linked to testosterone.
May I have your attention, please?
Give him a heater.
Now listening to Clear the Mechanism.
The Robby Rose Show.
The Robby Rose Show.
Oh, hey, yeah, we're doing it. This is it's been a while. It's been a while since I did like an intro, right? It's been a while since I did a like a little podcast pre-roll thing, but I felt like I needed to do it for this particular episode because there's no context to what we were doing. But it's Dr. Josh Heenan and I and myself. We go on Twitter Spaces. Since he calls me every single day and bugs me and annoys me, I was like, dude, let's at least get some content out of this. I hope he listens to this. Anyways, we hopped on Twitter Spaces. Never been on there before. Super dope platform. And we recorded it. So we talk about a bunch of different things, and we actually end up bringing on Troy Scribner, who is a former Major League Baseball pitcher. Talk a little bit about, that dynamic, that experience. There's a lot of good stuff in this, honestly. We range from like the steroid era to performance enhancing implementation, like moving forward in the game of baseball, to the unique like difficulty that is being a Major League Baseball player. There's a lot of good stuff. It's fun. So this is technically episode 12 of Bearded in the Brains, which is a podcast segment that we started when I was working with Josh Heenan during my rehab in Omaha. So if you want to check out more episodes of Bearded in the Brains, you can check out therobbyrosehow.com/beardedbrains. Bearded Brains. I'll include the link to that in the show notes as well. We have 11 episodes, so this is number 12. We'll probably be doing more of these. I enjoyed doing Twitter Spaces. It's hard to find free time these days. I'm getting ready for my season. I just launched a book. Ooh, there's a lot going on, but comfort in the chaos. You can check out my book, A Complete Guide to Pitching Mechanics, on my website. I will include a link to that in the show notes as well. So whatever platform you're listening to this episode on, just scroll over to like details. Check it out. Yeah, you can click it, or you can just head over to therobbyrosehow.com/ebooks, and it'll be in there as well. Okay, hope you guys enjoy this. If you guys want more, or even if you have suggestions on, what subjects you would like Dr. Heenan and I to cover, you can shoot me that in my question platform on my website, therobbyrosehow.com/ask. Wow, I'll include a link to that in the show notes as well. Okay, I'm done. You guys enjoy this. This is episode 12 of the segment Beard in the Brains with Dr. Josh Heenan, with a guest appearance from Troy Scribner. All right, enjoy. Talk to you guys later.
We'll go from there. But what are you working on now, Rob, that you're done with your announcement and you're officially going to be a player coach?
I thought you were going to give me an eBook plug. Missed opportunity.
No. Maybe we could finish with an eBook plug for you.
Can you hear that?
Yeah. What was that?
That's the applause for finishing my ebook.
Oh my God. Take that down.
All right. So I'm playing around with this thing. Invite via DM, copy link. Let me copy a link real quick and throw it on the IG, see what happens.
Okay. Guys, thanks for hanging tight with us. If you have, like I said, if you want to request and join, feel free to, and we will add you, and we can have you jump on. Cal, I hope the Iowa Western team is doing great. I know I had a bunch of guys when I was out there that were bouncing around in between those programs. So hope you guys are having a nice start to your season.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, me too. This is cool. So this is very similar to Discord. So you just create a link and go from there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty easy. And how come Twitter said it can be recorded through Twitter?
So I believe they just give you a link after, and then but I don't know if you can export it. So
what's the point of having it?
Robbie, you're asking the wrong guy.
All right, man. Well, everything's good here. To go back to your original question, we're living the dream. We got a couple more weeks back home in California, then we'll head out. The hard part is prepping for leaving, obviously.
Right.
You think I'd be an expert at it by now, but I never am. And I feel like every single year I add more and more and more stuff. But yeah, man, it's going to be cool. It's going to be a totally different experience for me. I mean, like the last, I want to say like couple seasons, I mean, I try to help out as much as I can with the players, but it's always a fine line of like, okay, well, I'm a player too, so I don't want to step on anyone's toes. But I think this year is going to be cool because obviously there's the title of being like a pitching coach and a player. The question I think now becomes, are you going to make your way out to Pomona, New York and watch a game? And are you bringing Frank Duffy?
100% on both. I just have to figure out timing. You know the deal. So, but we will get it done. I'm excited. I'm excited to see you throw finally. It's crazy that I have never seen you play a professional game.
Yeah, man. I feel like it's just because you don't really care all too much. You talk a big game, but
yeah, I'm only getting on planes to go see our guys crack the big leagues. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, hey, what's the difference between the big leagues and indie ball? I think that becomes the question.
No difference at all. No, but in all seriousness, I usually am able to get to somewhere between like 10 to 15 different groups of guys per year to see. Last year was relatively atrocious because of moving across the country and all those other things. So, you know, I got to see a handful of guys play. And I'll be honest, and this is kind of funny. I think a lot of people think it's like the complete opposite. And I'm interested to see, you know, what other people would have to say too about that. But I think the most fun I have is like probably going to see our high school guys play.
Why do you say that?
It's a good question.
Because there's more fanboys of Dr. Heenan at high school games?
No, get the heck out of here.
That's 100% the reason. Don't even say it's not.
Out of here. No, you know what it is? I think it's because that time is just like there's so much going on with that time, and those guys like as baseball becomes more and more a part of your life as you get older, like, you know, you play college ball or like you play professional, it's like you start to understand that it's a segment of your life versus like a lot of the guys in high school, it is their life. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Like
No, I don't.
You don't get that?
What do you mean? Like, so you're saying high school, it's just kind of a piece, and and you appreciate that more? And
no, the opposite. No, it's the opposite. I think that like a lot of our high school guys, like for instance, I think of a lot of our college guys, right? Like middle tier D1 to higher end D1 guys are often, at least in my experience, luckily for the athletes that we have, they treat it like a profession, but they also know that like there's, you know, they're out dating, they're off, like they're studying, they have other little pieces to their life that are starting to form, and that like it really, they're multifaceted, right? They have multiple pieces to their life, where it's like high school is like just pure emotion. You're with your best friends from high school, you're out there like the kid that's playing first base, maybe a senior that's like barely played at all his sophomore and junior year. He may be batting .210, and he may be a very, 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 very below average first baseman at that level. But like, he's your best friend, and you've had like a bazillion classes with him. Like, I love that aspect to it just as much as I do. Like,
okay, now I gotcha.
I love seeing, because it's emotion. It's like like you go out
pure.
and win something. Exactly. And you don't know, it's almost naive emotion. You know what I mean? You don't know like how bitter pro ball can be at many portions because it is so cutthroat. And same thing with college sports. You know, it's like college sports is no joke. Like you go to a D1 program or you go to a good program, doesn't really matter, D1, D2, D3, that's highly competitive. And like, there's a good chance you can get cut if you're not doing your thing, even if you have scholarship money. So like, it gets to be more business, and this is just pure emotion. That's kind of my take. That doesn't take away the fact that I love going to see our college guys play. I love seeing our guys in the College World Series. I love seeing our guys crack the big leagues. Like I've told you this before. Like I've cried at more big league debuts for our guys than I have my own damn wedding. Like it's just very emotional. There's a lot that's going on. So
yeah, I can't relate to that, dude, because I feel like my experience with high school baseball was drastically different. Like I was talking about this yesterday at the park. Like my experience my senior year was it felt like everything. Right, like whereas you typically in high school, it's like, okay, yeah, I play baseball, but I also got
that's what I'm saying.
SATs coming up and whatever.
No, but it is that's what I'm saying. It is everything. It's like because the emotions are high and obviously yours was tattered with things that I would never understand, like actually throwing the ball hard and actually getting scouted to have a chance to play, make it a career.
What is can you pinpoint like the proudest moment that you've ever had with one of your athletes, or maybe not even one of your athletes, just like one of the most proud moments? And if you don't say my first bullpen back from lat surgery, then I don't know if we can continue this conversation.
That was a fantastic moment. You did a lot of legwork to get there. And I think the holding off of, for those that don't know, when Robby had his lat repair, we actually held off from throwing for a little bit longer than was recommended, because there was some strength deficits that he had and some other things that kind of played out that just were not. There was just some red flags there that I think we could have handled, and we punted. How much longer was that? Like a month or two?
Well, we both kind of were confused at the return to throw, remember? And that was right around the time that we sat down with Alan Jaeger and we talked about that whole thing. For those of you guys listening, go check out that podcast, freaking money episode.
And so that was awesome to see you come out. And what did you top that day when you were first off the, what was it, 94, 96?
Well, no, remember I was panicking because like when we did start throwing and I started like getting up a little bit and getting going, initially I was playing catch with you and I felt bad because I had no indication of like my exertion. Like, do you remember? No, I literally I could pull up video right now on my computer, which is the best part of content, and just be like, watch this August 26th throwing program with Dr. Heenan. And it was like 12 feet away, just letting balls rip. Sorry.
Yeah.
You were so funny though. You were so great. You were just like, it's okay. I know. It's okay.
Yeah. It's a part of it. You're not the first person to let me at 45 feet from, to my face, especially after I get to yell at you for, 6 months. So, no, that was a really good moment. I think, the most proud, really hands down is Troy cracking the big leagues. A guy that I've had since first day of college, 17 years old, can barely touch his toes. And we had him do a side plank, and we would do drills at the end of we would do team drills at the end of our strength and conditioning stuff. And it was always fun, but it was always fun after week 3 when kind of the younger guys started to really get it. And he went and did everybody's doing 60-second front plank hold. And then we're doing 30 seconds, 60 seconds on side plank hold. And we phase them in. It's not like we just throw them into it, but he was, I think he held a front plank for 9 seconds and he gave it his all. And it was he was pouring sweat, gave it his all. And you're he's 6'1", 150 pounds soaking wet. He's very, he's a really good pitcher and just not really the athlete that you're hoping he would be at that stage, in my opinion. But I'm also, I'm jaded because I want guys to be prepared going into college, and then to see him, really work himself as an undrafted free agent, coming all the way to the top and then cracking the big leagues. And also having him 4 years in college, seeing him develop as a person, and just that has to be the most proud baseball moment. I think I could, lift a World Series championship and have a ring and still probably be the Troy thing, probably be just as much as an emotional impact to me as anything else.
That's with anything though, right? Watch a sports movie and it's you're automatically attached to the underdog story.
Right, exactly.
And the fact that like
it was my first guy cracking the big leagues too. So that was like, to have it someone that you have that kind of impact with, like seeing him warm up in the bullpen, it's like, oh my God. Just
dude,
like,
I mean, I don't know if people realize, maybe they do, but like just the difficulty of like being a major league baseball player. Like, well, I mean,
being the difficulty of being the best at anything you do, and then having the added pressure of an audience and basically, you know, being an undrafted free agent, kind of, you know, in those situations, and really not a highly touted guy, even though you put up good numbers regardless. You just like even your teammates are, you know, probably like, oh shit, like here we go,
dude.
Like here's a guy that's not going to be, you know, and everything's stacked against you.
Do you want to hear a crazy stat?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So as of today, April 4th, since 1876, which is the first year of the National League, there has been a total of,
what's it, 21,000, 19,000?
19,969.
Yep.
But think about like this is crazy. I mean, my dad always says it, like that's the one thing my dad will have over me until, you know, hopefully the day I make the big leagues. But like he was one of, you know, that little of number of total human being
people,
bro, like of total human beings to ever walk this face of the earth, right? Like that's crazy. I mean, could you imagine being the 20,000th player? Yeah. Like that dude's gonna have some freaking bragging rights.
Yeah,
that's dope.
Maybe it'll be you.
No, so 969. No, because there's going to be a lot of guys that already have cracked the big league roster, but they haven't played a game yet. So I think coming out of spring training, that's where it's going to be interesting.
We had the stat too when he cracked the big leagues. The one that got me, because I had like a little team working on some stats just to see kind of what it was, and I think there was at the time like, I want to say 3 undrafted free agents that were on big league rosters when Troy cracked the big leagues. I'm like, good God. Like, can you imagine? like that's insane. And obviously, like it is what it is, and like, scouting isn't perfect, and like, and all those things. But it's just crazy how the odds are. Even if you're a first rounder, there's a very high likelihood you never sniff the big leagues.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it helps, right? Like
it doesn't hurt.
Dudes like Troy, like guys like Troy, everything is against him, right? Like this is the craziest part about guys like that do like a free agent thing, or just kind of like they get a contract, you know, coming out of the draft or whatever the case may be. Like they screw up a couple times, like they're gone. You know, like if they don't make a good first impression here and there, they're gone. Like that was the case with my brother, right? Like my brother was a free agent. We did a brother deal in 2010, and homeboy went to frickin' our rookie season and he hit 300. He was player of the week twice. And then he comes into camp the following year and he's released. And it's like, okay, but our first rounder from, 3 years prior just played his third rookie season and didn't even hit his weight. But like he's going to get opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. That's the political side of the game, obviously. But like the guys that can say like, dude, I was a free agent, blah, 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 and I made the big leagues. Holy smokes. Yeah. Talk about freaking difficulty.
But this is the thing that like, I was messaging a guy the other day who's not a client of ours, but he's interacted with us a lot. And he sent me a message asking a training question. And I said, hey, how's your spring training going? He goes, I hit the cover off the ball. He's like, and I just got released. And I was like, crap. And I was like, hey man, I was like, you know what? It's it's a part of the beast that you are of professional sports. And he's like, no, like I'm good. Like I'll be picked up probably in a couple days. Like my agent's like on it, whatever. That's great. But it's just funny that like there's so many moving parts. And for Troy, which was interesting for me, and it was the amount that he was overlooked. And obviously like I'm super biased because like I'm friends with him and I've seen him develop. So, there's insane amount of bias.
You're saying overlooked in college and like high school?
Well, overlooked in high school, maybe. We could argue that for sure, because he didn't have a ton of offers and he was very good. But in college, when he got when he didn't get drafted. I mean, his brother, if I remember correctly, I may have the timing off, but his brother, I believe, was in the big leagues at that very moment. I think his brother cracked the big leagues his junior year and was doing pretty darn well out of the bullpen for the Mariners when he was a senior. So I figured the politics game would probably actually favor him at some point
100%.
and be like, all right, he's not going to go like, is he going to be a top 10 rounder? Probably not. But is he going to be a guy that, is he going to be the guy that is given a chance? Then,
frick, dude, his brother's got 169 innings in the show.
Exactly. Rob, we have a couple of people requesting to jump in right now. Do you, I'm going to add them in and let them ask away. I assume they probably have questions for you because you're Robbie Rowe.
What do you mean, dude? We're on Twitter. This is your element, dude. If you want to hop over to TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I just added baseball health and performance. So they should be able to.
So this is just like Clubhouse, where they come in and they can talk and we can hear them.
Yep, he's muted right now. We'll see. And if anybody else wants to request, feel free to request, and we'll go from there.
We should do like a radio show segment every like Wednesday or something, like 9 a.m. Be like, all right, we're hopping on for 20 minutes.
I'm happy to do it. We can figure it out. Yeah, but no, it's interesting. It's just there's so many moving parts, and like I said to the kid, and that was the politics thing. That's really what I meant to say is the kid that was messaging me, and hit the cover off the ball and just got released, and I was like, it depends on the organization. There's a lot of moving parts, obviously, but a lot of those changes are made like they're not even looking at your numbers to make, those are political changes that they're trying to navigate different situations. And
whoa,
what was that?
Can you hear that?
I did.
Oh,
I did hear that.
That's not good.
No, but a lot of those changes
tried to watch an MLB game. Jeez.
No, but a lot of those changes are made outside of the realm of your performance. Like you could go and shove and still not get moved up or get released just purely because of your age and the combination of like you had an injury and you know what, like we were hoping that instead of throwing 95, you were throwing 98.
Okay.
You're throwing 94.
Yeah, great conversation topic though. That whole age dynamic in baseball, right?
Yep.
So you coming from like your strength conditioning background, human performance, and me obviously like at the age of what am I, 19 now? Just turned 19. But no, so just turned 30. Whereas like I'll say this till I'm blue in the face, but like as of right now at age 30 in professional baseball, I'm considered old, right? But
right.
I feel physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually like the best I've ever felt. Now, right. I would say that that's a huge advantage for me, like
100%.
Approaching the game of baseball, because I think there's so much like mental integrity that needs to be involved that doesn't really, get optimized until later on in life. But yet the individuals that are responsible for, getting these guys contracts to play are going to say, no, physically he's old, he's out of his prime, like, he's not going to help us. What is your take on like where you see the game of baseball maybe changing in the sense of like Max Scherzer just got a huge contract at the age of 36 or something?
Well, yeah, it's a fantastic question. I said on a podcast one time, I think in the next 15 years, a part of your scouting report, when B2, my son, decides to if he decides to play baseball and he's getting recruited or whatever, I mean, shit, it'll probably trickle down all the way into the college ranks. But like, you may get a freaking swab of inside your mouth and then just test your DNA and be like, yeah, no, whatever.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And I know this is a little off track with your statement about age, but I read something. I sent something to Annie, my wife, the other day about so your microbiome, so your stomach, basically all of the bacteria. Yeah, all the bacteria that are in your stomach. Robbie, you heard that.
I got an email, dude.
All those microorganisms that are in your stomach that help you break down foods and basically help your body digest. We know there's links to depression, anxiety, sleep disorders, things like that. with those individual species that you have in the stomach. But they're now also, they found that, I want to say it was like 100-meter dashers that are like world champion level 100-meter dashers have a very unique subset of microbiome, right? Which is blows my mind to think that like those subsets of people have a very unique makeup. And then the question then becomes, is that an environmental thing, or like are they all taking their greens every morning, like their super greens product, and is that helping develop a particular microbiome? Are they eating a certain amount of protein? Are they eating certain type of protein? Are they consuming a type of fat, or were they born this way? And also, like, if they don't have that microbiome, can I go harvest that somewhere and start consuming that to try to develop my microbiome to be more like them? And is that going to be an indicator of me being a better athlete because now I have a better genetic makeup? Which then comes back to the whole kind of question of like the age stuff. At some point, and I think you'll see, it's going to be interesting because there's some organizations that you know we consult with and work with, and that like they only want like multi-sport athletes, right? Like that's like one of their big things. It's like, we don't want a pitcher, we don't want a shortstop, we want a guy that like, you know, was dunking on his high school team and was playing soccer and like didn't get burnt out from baseball, and also has a really unique neurological movement makeup so that it allows him to peak a little bit later on. Some organizations want a guy that's ready right now, so they want someone that has more reps under their belt, and they don't want to have the time frame of like, hey, we don't want to have to build that person up as much. Like, we want to be able to get him into low A and then shove him into double A by the end of the season. And like, hey, maybe he'll make triple A the next year and be sitting ready for the big leagues. Like, so it's really interesting, but I do think that there will be organizations, and my guess is it will probably be the lower end in terms of salary cap, and like some of the lower markets that are looking to squeeze out the best value they can, and getting someone that's a 42, 44-year-old that still runs it up to 95, but is really just a great pitcher. I think that those things will happen. I just don't know how long it's going to take for these organizations to do it. The hard thing is now what's interesting and outside of my realm of knowledge, but probably more of yours, is like, now that you have the CBA really is advantageous for, a guy that's been around the league for 10 plus years. Do you really want to pay a guy $5-10 million at 43 to go throw a baseball when you're like, you know what, he's like, he probably is going to, the odds are he's going to break down quicker than the 23-year-old. So like, I don't know how you play that. I don't know the logistics of it. I'm sure that there's data analysis on that, and it will begin to
we'll just look historically
evolve.
Though, right? Like historically speaking, I think anytime someone is like Albert Pujols, right, is a great example of like the 10-year contract that he's making 20 something million when he's 40, and his production is, atrocious in comparison to the value of, his contract. I just think if you look at just that piece, then it's like, okay, well, owners aren't dumb. Right. They want efficiency. So it's like, I could see in that regard, but I'm more speaking at like position player is going to be a totally separate category than, in my opinion, a pitcher would be. I think we're seeing it within the last 10, 20 years with the, the emphasis on training and the advancements in technology and the emphasis on, just overall human optimization. I think for a pitcher standpoint, dude, like, you're seeing it, guys that are throwing harder at 35, 37 than they did at 25, 27.
Right.
So, like, that's kind of where I was going to go with that in looking at just, like, the pitching aspect. Because, the workload is so different as a hitter, too, right? Like, you get
Right.
you get older and you're having to, take ground balls every day. You're going to have to swing in the cage every day. Like that's strenuous. And I don't know if that's sustainable.
And that's the, excuse me. That's why I think speed is always, the, and not velocity in throwing, but speed, like actually running is such a sought after quality that is really, it's obviously it's trainable to an extent, but it's easier. It's very easy in the grand scheme of things to maintain power as you age. That is one of the hardest qualities to quote unquote keep, but it's easy to keep that power. Keeping the speed is the hard part, right? Like, because power is a dynamic of speed and force production at what speed you're producing it. So your force production can go up even as you age. But your speed, it's very difficult to keep. And a lot of that is linked to testosterone and things like that, which then gets into the whole realm of like, so you look at like a healthy Justin Verlander, right? And you say, okay, his velocity hasn't really waxed and waned much throughout his career. It's really kind of sat in the same area. And he's big, strong guy for the most part, at least from, everything that I've seen. And if his testosterone starts to dip a little bit, and let's say he gets to lower end ranges when he's like 40 years old, he be allowed to supplement some testosterone to get back to quote unquote healthy ranges, which then, now we're talking, now he's a steroid user depending on who you're asking. But like, if we're getting him to supplement to get into normal ranges, could now he pitch until he's 52?
So,
is it cheating? And I have no idea what the answer is.
I believe, and take this with a grain of salt because it's not absolutely true. I've just heard like the rumors. There's multiple guys in the big leagues that get like a medical exemption, and they get the ability to take like human growth hormone because their body just technically doesn't produce as much as other people. So if you're 40 something, whatever, couldn't you get clinically diagnosed with limited amount of testosterone production and then get a medical clearance?
I mean, that's the question. I mean, but also think about the, I'm sure you can speak to this, as a player, but think about the, what was your first year in pro ball?
2010.
2010. I mean, the amount of guys that I know that went to pro ball and all of a sudden, quote unquote, developed ADD and were able to have Adderall and those types of medicine available to them so that they weren't breaking the rules, is immense. And
that's why they locked down on it.
Well, exactly. And now it's more challenging, but like it's always going to wax and wane. And that's what's so interesting about like baseball with like steroid era versus like not, like who should be in the Hall of Fame. It's like, I am not qualified to answer any of those questions, but it really is interesting. Is it cheating? And if that you're 44 years old, you're arguably one of the best pitchers in baseball, and if you are able to supplement something to get you back to normal, healthy levels, just because you're a little bit lower and you can pitch for another 7 years, are you breaking the rules? Are you cheating? Are you creating an unfair advantage? I don't know. But I think that's the thing is like now that may come into play when we're looking at like the longevity of those athletes. And if let's say you're 40 years old and your testosterone is much higher, and we have other indicators like your microbiome is a certain makeup and this and that, you may be someone that someone's going to throw serious money at because they're like, you know what, he's not going to age. He's going to age more like Tom Brady than someone else. And
you can quantify that though?
Well, that's the thing is like there's data out there, but also you don't know when people really start to break down. And just because you have testosterone that's higher or you have other factors doesn't mean that your orthopedics are going to be able to keep up. So there's that fine line of like, what are people going to do? And you're going to see organizations that are going to have to make bets on it because there's going to be guys that are, outside the normal parameters of like, oh, this shouldn't, 44-year-olds shouldn't be throwing in the big leagues right now. But he is. And is that because he's mechanically efficient? Is it because he's big and strong? Is it because he has high testosterone? Is it because he has certain other genetic makeup things? I don't know. But those are all probably factors.
Do you know what the average major league career is?
The average major league career. Well, speaking of the devil, Mr. Scribner just popped in.
And he will appear.
He will appear. So I'm going to invite him as a host here. But how long is it? I want to say 1 year.
5.6.
5.6 years?
Which is way higher than I thought, right?
I know NFL is like super, super, super low.
The study also revealed 1 in 5 position players will only have a single year career. So it's kind of trying to break it up per position. So here's my take on the steroid thing, and this might be a hot take or whatever, but like if your goal from a commissioner standpoint is to increase the entertainment to then increase like the awareness / people wanting to watch, and your idea behind increasing entertainment is more run production, more action, then why not have a league in which you're like, hey, like free range to do whatever. Obviously certain people are going to do whatever it takes because that's such a small window in someone's life to make like their living. And then certain people are going to be like, whatever, I don't need it. It'd be really interesting to see if that would have any influence on the popularity.
Well, right. But to counter your point, and again, I have no idea what the answer is, but do you think that I should have to, for argument's sake, cheat to keep up?
No. And I mean, that hits home, right? Like my dad played in the 90s, and like I grew up on stories of how he like it was unfair. I mean, in the sense of like there's the other side of it, knowing that it wasn't like quote unquote illegal like it is now.
Right.
But it was just like, man, I'm over here like doing this in such a way that is, hard work, it's nutrition, diet, putting myself in the best possible position to have success. And these other guys, you could potentially say the same thing in terms of like they have a family, they want to take advantage of this time, and they're going to do whatever it takes to provide for them.
Right. But I was talking to, I don't remember who I was talking to yesterday. I was talking to someone about this. And from my perspective, most of our, higher end athletes that you kind of, like when a guy has it and you're like, he's got the skills. You look at the track record, you look at the numbers, and you say, this guy has the tools, he has the makeup, all of these things. One of the big things that we try to do with our clients is like, one, build a tremendous rapport, which I think you can speak a lot to in terms of like what we do for our athletes and the community we build, but also really get them to understand the framework of the thing that's going to knock you off. If you're really that skilled, the thing that's going to knock you off probably has nothing to do with baseball. It's having an issue with your girlfriend. It's having a finance issue. It's having a side girlfriend issue. It's having family issues. It's having death in the family. It's having drug type issues. Like any of these outside factors are all like pressing down on that system, and those things allow for cracks to be made. And then if you're dealing with juggling 2 girlfriends at once because one's a side chick and one's your main girl, and now you're having issues there, it's hard to go to the field and probably go 2 for 3 that night. And those are the things that I think really, that's the pressure cooker that is professional sports. Your time is limited. You have all these things. And then also, that's why it's interesting to have someone like you talking about like the health nutrition side to it, where it's like, those are all competitive advantages. And what is, are those external things going to be competitive advantages, and how do you handle things that are out of your control? you have a bad car accident or something like that. It's like those are the things where the mental makeup is such a big thing, and some people just need to go through something to really figure out if they're going to be able to make it. It's hard to tell at 17, 18 years old if a kid that age is going to be able to handle the weight of the world of going out and doing their job day in and day out and not making catastrophic mistakes. But I had one of my athletes said, and one of his high school coaches said to him, I asked him, I said, hey, do you have a girlfriend? He was a senior in high school, and he goes, no, coach tells me it takes 5 miles an hour off your fastball.
Yeah,
and I thought it was like, I thought that was really funny, but also like, there might be some insight to that, like as in a joking sense of like, there's other outstanding factors that will come to play, and who should be rewarded the most? Should the person that's able to wrangle their life and nutrition and training and every little piece to be to optimize, which I know is something you take a lot of pride in, should that person be rewarded versus the person that is gonna have to supplement their way to the top with things that could be deemed illegal or cheating? It's like it's a tough a tough bet.
I could make almost like a whole separate argument to counter like your point with like all these other quote unquote distractions. Could make an argument for like, okay, well, if you don't have any distractions and you are like your identity is trapped in the game, right? We talk about like specializing
100%
early on. Like that was kind of something that I fell victim of, honestly. Like my first couple of years, man, was like, I was baseball. I was a baseball. Like, you know what I mean? Like there wasn't anything else.
Right.
Like there wasn't a quote unquote hobby I had, obviously playing basketball or whatever. But like I see the best baseball players that I've personally been around. It's not that they don't care about the game, but it's it's like it doesn't define them. And so therefore like they almost have the weight of the world lifted off their shoulders, right? Whereas like I think a lot of guys who live and breathe it like myself and are extremely passionate about it, work extremely hard, there's this expectation. And anytime you have like expectation, there might be some internal conflict or internal pressure that then makes the task like a little bit more difficult. It's an interesting conversation. Obviously, like there's a fine line between, okay, how much is too much distraction and how much is like not enough distraction, right? Like what's your escape?
Yeah, and Troy just sent me a message. He's trying to get in to talk. But one of the things that
do I need to do something on my end with him?
No, I don't think so. I think it's good. I think it's a Troy issue. I think it's his.
Oh,
I don't know what's going on.
I just clicked his thing. Troy, sorry, dude. I guess I didn't follow you on Twitter. But now I do.
So one of the things that I think is like it's interesting you say of taking the opposite side of that argument. I don't disagree, but I think everybody has to know what's going to work for them. Much like training, much like how you and I look at things as like what is optimal, what do we need to do to accomplish our goals. And I think it's something that you and I have worked well on over the years of 80% of the stuff is like, in my opinion, is kind of non-negotiable. Like there's certain things that we need to have covered, but the last 20%, if we're going to remove a certain shoulder exercise and you're going to include Indian clubs because you like Indian clubs, then who am I to like, if it's not doing harm and you feel good about it and you enjoy it, then like, who am I to take away that 20%? But that's the balance. Some people would say that the fact that like, you and I have gone to a casino together is like, oh, we're indulging in sin, right? Like we're a terrible person because we're going to gamble and like whatever. We're not gambling the house. You and I go and have a meal. We play some cards. It kills some time for us. And like, I don't think people realize that like at the same token, a lot of times, like, there'd be days where we'd spend 12 hours together, whether it's working, like training and throwing and things like that, on top of actually building our businesses, working, helping our clients, things like that. It's like some people want that balance, and I think everybody needs to understand where their edges lie, right?
I think to counter the point with like the identification of like what you need, two things. One, more oftentimes than not, we were talking about this yesterday when we did a podcast with my guys at the park, is one, it's almost 80% of the time identified too late because your window in peak performance is so limited.
Yep.
Two, you don't have room to self-identify because there's so much hands-on throughout your development process.
Right.
So like when you get into an organization, you know, you obviously are going to get into that organization and be like, hey, like, I'm going to do whatever you guys tell me to do. You guys are my boss. I want to please you. So it takes away that, and I'm not saying that it's a right or a wrong approach. I think it just takes away that opportunity to influence like mindfulness of, okay, I do X, Y, and Z with this organization and I feel this way. It's the same thing like when I went to Pittsburgh, right? Like it's no disrespect to anyone who has influence on the way that things are going to be run. It's just that's the way that they perceive as the best route for their athletes. So when I go to Pittsburgh and they cap a throwing program off at 120 and full well knowing that I do best when I can long toss and not put a time limit on anything with no constraints, then there's going to be conflict. But like it's your responsibility as the athlete to like not cause any ruckus and be like, not speak up because you don't want to like cause any riffles or whatever. And it's tough. I think the biggest encouragement that I have through my social media platform is that process of self-identification, because I think it just makes sense. It's one thing that you can control in a game that is built around uncontrollables.
Right. And Troy, just so you know, Troy is now on. I think he
there
he is.
Whoa, dude, we're live. Let's go. Oh, that's cool. How we doing? This is for you.
Figured it out.
There you go.
Robby we were talking earlier about like most dramatic, most influential, impactful moments in my career, and I was just saying, I don't think any moment of baseball will be more impactful than like seeing you go from like, being you as a freshman in college all the way up to the big leagues and seeing that unfold and seeing that live and seeing you crack the big leagues. That was, it's a special moment, but it's interesting. We ended up talking dynamics of like, politics in baseball. And I actually brought up how Evan, was pitching in the big leagues when you went undrafted, and we kind of covered all sorts of stuff. But Robby, where do you want to go with this?
Where I want to go is away. I got a lot of stuff to do. But that's a typical Dr. Heenan kind of, hey, this will be only 20 minutes. And then it's like 2 hours later and you're just like, what are we doing?
Well, give us 5 more minutes with Troy. We got him now.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's like I can't just leave now. Troy, what is the? I'm so curious about this. Like, what is it from a mindset standpoint of you getting into affiliated ball, right? Because that's hard in and of itself. That, and then like, what was the mindset as you got in and started to realize, like, wow, like, there's a lot of guys here that are first, second rounders that are going to get opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, and then you, where the window of error is extremely small. Like, how did you kind of approach that?
Yeah, it was a big shock, transitioning from my tiny little college and immediately getting thrown into a massive pool of really, really talented players and athletes. It was definitely an eye-opening experience for me. And I mean, it was pure shock in the beginning. I had no idea what was going on. I walked in and I was like, this whole thing is built just for me to play baseball. It was very shocking walking into it like that. And then after a while, it just felt kind of normal. It set in, and I was like, this is my life now. I can get used to this and try to freaking compete with these guys who are, very talented.
How'd you find that normalcy? Was there anything like consciously that you did to do that? Like constantly telling yourself over and over again that it's the same game? Or was it just like the repetitions and the comfort factor kind of just set in over time?
Yeah, it's the repetitions. You show up, and eventually every time you go to the facility or the ballpark, you just kind of are like, okay, this is just my routine. And then it eventually becomes normal. But definitely it takes a little bit while, especially in the beginning when you're walking into a facility that, like the Astros facility that I walked into when I first signed it came down was, to me, it was amazing. Everything was just immaculately clean, and there was all these resources available to me. And then eventually it becomes routine, and you wake up and you go to the facility, and this is your life and this is your routine, and you can start to focus on other things.
Do you believe that you had somewhat, like the game of baseball, pitching in general is like extremely hard anyways, but do you believe that you had somewhat of an advantage, like when you got up to the big leagues in terms of like expectation, right? Because like you've seen multiple first, second, third rounders, or must see prospects, that there's this like high ceiling of expectation, which puts like a lot of internal pressure on these guys. And like, do you think for yourself it was kind of just like, I'm just here, like walk me through that?
Yeah, I think that definitely goes into it. My whole career, the expectations were super low, so I had a very opposite career than most of those guys. Everybody was, when I did well, it was a surprise to everybody, a big shock, and a pleasant one at that. But still, it was nobody expected me to be where I was or do as well as I was doing, and I think I had a little bit of a more, not relaxing, but a little bit less of a stressful point of view when I got up there, because it was like, oh, if I do bad, everybody's just going to be like, whatever, this kid's not expected to do well. And that gave me a little bit of comfort, saying I can just kind of relax and do my thing. And
facts. Yeah. It was the same thing for my brother, dude. Like that's what, like our first year together, like I was so frustrated at that. Like he had no like pressure, right? Like we did a brother deal and he was there basically as a free agent, whereas I was like a 88th overall, and it was like such a different dynamic with he's playing with house money and I'm over there like grinding my face off with all these like expectations.
Right.
And like, how pressure is in the game of baseball, right? Like it could be devastating and it could take a lot of like the joy away from it.
Oh, for sure. I think there's pressure in both point of views. There's pressure in me to rise above and try to beat those low expectations, just like there was pressure for you and other people like you to raise to the expectations that were high. So there's pressure on both sides, but definitely the stress is debilitating at some points, and it kills a lot of people's careers. It kills a lot of really talented players' careers because they just couldn't. Yeah. You can't handle that amount of pressure, and it's really tough to handle it, and to handle it for an extended period of time. And I watched. More than anybody, I've watched more than one really, really talented kid get absolutely, strangled by the stress and the anxiety of playing professional baseball every day. And despite how good they were and how talented, how raw their talent was and how much potential they had, it didn't matter, because when it came to the mental, fortitude that they needed, it just wasn't there. And it, not only does it hurt them performance wise, but, that hurts their love of the game. And you see people that end up, they end up having no joy out of it anymore. And it's a very hard thing to see as someone like me who just loves it so much. I don't ever want to see somebody not enjoy playing.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Well, we were talking about that a little bit earlier, Troy, about kind of like finding balance, and I use the example of like Robby and I have gone to the casino a couple times, and we're not betting the house, we're literally playing cards for a couple hours, and after working 12, 16 hours together, working on whether it's podcast clients, training together, throwing, like everything that we're doing, it was our ability to have like a little balance and kind of just lighten up the mood. And some guys have video games, some guys have other things, but I think Robby, I think one of the things that like I can comment to you on and give you a lot of credit for is like, I think people really struggle, especially with outside influences. And Troy, you, in my opinion, you did a really good job throughout your whole career. Ever since I've met you, actually, is just kind of being the most authentic version of yourself, of like, what are you and who are you and what are you about, and not letting other people's narrative kind of define what you're going to do and how you're going to feel about that. And obviously there's times where, your foundation gets shaken and things happen within your career that are just out of your control, and it makes it difficult. But I think, whether we're talking just sports or we're talking life, like I think that is such a difficult thing for most people to do and wrangle. And you think about like the high school baseball coaches that are, only as good as the last clinic they went to. So now everybody's throwing a little bit differently because they learned this new technique. And like, it's like, why, like finding that deep value of yourself and figuring out what your real values are and what you're going to be able to bring to the game, and where your edges are in terms of the sharpness of your skills and personality is just such a hard thing for so many people to wrangle. And, I don't know, how a lot of people do it a lot of times, because there is so much pressure, and like, can you imagine being Bryce Harper at 16 years old being on the cover of, what was it, Sports Illustrated or whatever,
Yeah.
and then living up to that hype.
Yeah.
That's insane.
LeBron James.
Right, exactly. And to think, like, I remember people were like giving Bryce Harper shit because he had like a mohawk in AA. I'm like, the kid's 20 years old. He's probably worth $30 million. He wants to run around with a mohawk. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, caring about things that don't really matter.
Exactly.
Well, it's like the identity thing, right? Like you mentioned foundation, and I think that's like the biggest thing when it comes to baseball too, because a lot of times organizations, again, not like doing anything wrong or right in that approach, but it's like they perceive a certain identity for the athlete, like they want to manifest that for like, oh, we see you being this guy and
right,
and try to do it this way. And then as you being an employee of that organization, right, like putting a jersey on every single day, you're like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And I speak to like personal experience, obviously. Like I think my problem was being 18 years old and not, having that identity / foundation piece, and then kind of trying to adapt to what they wanted rather than like, okay, what am I best at? And again, it goes back to like, Josh, what you and I were talking about earlier. I think like the biggest message that we can get across is like identification, right? Like know for sure, because that's one thing that you can't control in this game. But on that note, I got to run. I got to go.
All right. No, that's good. I figure we'll catch this up. Maybe we'll have I'll fly Troy out here when you and Harms are going to be here, and maybe we can do a little round table or something. But yeah, we'll definitely catch up soon. Troy, thanks for jumping on last second. I know
you got it, guys. You got it.
Yeah,
thanks
appreciate it.
Yeah,
we'll do this again, and I'll talk to you soon, Rob.
Anyone got a title for this podcast?
Oh God.
What do we title this?
Oh man, I think the real person we ask is Kenny. Kenny will know.
I'm going to title it the Heenan Twitter bump. That's it.
Oh God, do not do that.
All right, see you guys.
See you later.
Go on.